Hey there, this is Ghassani from Sage and Sound. Today's video is going to be part one out of our new series on how to make better decisions. Decision making is such a big part of our lives. We make so many decisions each day, from simply the mundane kind of decisions, such as, what brand of toothpaste am I getting today, to those big, life-changing, very consequential kind of decisions, such as should I move to this other country? Or should I quit jobs? Or should I marry this person? The thing is that we often don't feel like we make decisions until we are faced with these big life-changing decisions. So when we get to this point, we usually freak out because how do we know how to make these decisions? The thing is that we often get a bit caught up in using the outcomes of our decision as a benchmark to know whether we've made a good decision or not. And this is a trap in itself because there are so many different factors that can influence the outcomes of our decisions. And these factors are usually outside of our control. So what do we do about it? So what we can do is focus on the decision-making process. So how we come to that decision so that we can do things that are within our control to make sure that we make a good decision, whilst also maximizing the probabilities of getting good outcomes. Because when we sort of make decisions and it just sort of happens to work, that's luck. That's not a good decision-making process. And this is why it's so important for us to know how we can improve our decision-making processes so we can actually raise the probabilities of getting good outcomes. So the first step in improving our decision-making process is to understand what is it that we're really trying to decide here. And this is basically another way of questioning ourselves. What is the problem that we're trying to solve with this decision that we're about to make? And this question in itself helps us sort of frame the problem correctly, because when we incorrectly frame the problem, such as focusing on problems that are like way too big and way beyond our control, or focusing on problems that are so focused and narrow that it's quite irrelevant. So it sort of distracts us away from what is the actual problem that we're dealing with. A good example for this is, let's say, our decision whether we should quit our job or not. I think a lot of people face this dilemma sometime in their careers where they have to make a decision whether should I quit my job or not. And that sort of like the big decision that we usually face, right? But it's not the main problem. So it is important for us to understand what is the problem that leads to us thinking or considering about leaving our job. So is it that I feel that this job is not paying me enough for the work that I'm doing? Or is it that maybe I just don't feel like this role is fulfilling or contributing towards my career goals? Or is it actually that I feel like I don't fit in and I don't belong in this workplace with my work colleagues? Because each of these problems require different sort of solutions and different ways of gathering information to make that decision whether we should leave our work or not. So this is why it is so important to understand what the core problem is that we are trying to solve with this decision. So once we understand what the problem is, it is also important to, I guess, analyze whether the problem in itself is actually solvable, because sometimes we can get trapped into ticking up problems that are actually impossible to solve. So this is another important point. But once we have framed the problem and understand the core problem and it is actually solvable, then we can ask ourselves three things in regards to our decision. So number one is, how will this decision change things? Number 2, will this decision impact just myself or others as well? And 3, will the outcomes of these decisions be reversible or permanent? So this gets us to think about the possible consequences of our decisions and the outreach of the outcomes of these decisions, because sometimes our decisions can also influence others, and that might change the way we feel about that decision in itself. These 3 questions would be very helpful to help you weigh out your options before you make a decision. If you'd like to know more about decision making or how to improve your decision making, feel free to book in an appointment with myself at Sage and Sound, or you can wait until the next video. See ya!